agroforestry. The topic is improving indigenous agroforestry. I am Dr. Nat Tuitavalagi. I am the agriculture researcher here at the College of Micronesia FSM, and I'm based in Pohnpei. My first topic is what is agroforestry? There are many complicated definitions out there. I'll just give you a very simple one. And that is that agroforestry is based on two words, agriculture and forestry. So agroforestry is a system of land use in which agriculture and forestry are practiced on the same piece of land. They can be practiced at the same time, or they can be practiced at different times. My second topic is types of agroforestry. In the Pacific Islands, there are two main types of agroforestry. Firstly is the indigenous agroforestry, and secondly is the institutional agroforestry. Indigenous agroforestry is the land use system that has been practiced by the Pacific Islanders for hundreds, if not thousands of years. In this type of land use, the plants, including the crops and the trees, seem to be planted haphazardly. There seems to be no clear pattern of where each plant is planted. And profit is not a major objective in this system. And the system provides a lot of things for the community. Not only food, but also materials for building boats, building houses, medicine, and so forth. Institutional agroforestry is a new introduction, introduced by research agencies and development workers that are trying to bring in development into the Pacific Islands. So this is a new introduction, and profit is considered as one of the important objectives. And at the same time, they try to remain true to the original objective of indigenous agroforestry, which is sustainability. My third topic is why do we need to improve indigenous agroforestry? Indigenous agroforestry was first designed long time ago when there was no need for money or profit. But nowadays, farmers need money. They need a profit from their farming activities. So we need to introduce ideas that can get a profit for the farmer. This is one of the main reasons why we need to improve the indigenous system of agroforestry. Another concern we have is that farmers might be led into monocropping because of their search for profit. Monocropping, as we see it, is a bit risky in terms of the environment and sustainability. And for this reason, we just want to stick with a revised system of agriculture that the locals are already used to, something that is sustainable and the farmers find it easy to manage, but at the same time give them the profit. So these are the main reasons why we just need to improve what the farmers are already practicing rather than bringing something totally new. And even some of the institutional agroforestry ideas are totally foreign, and we just need to deviate a little bit from what farmers are already accustomed to. That will be the easiest way for them to move forward. My fourth topic is advantages of agroforestry. There are a number of advantages of agroforestry. You can see them in the narrative that is attached below. but I will be just listing 4 of them. The first one is sustainability. This system of land use is sustainable. It will last because it is not damaging to the environment. So that is the first one. The second advantage of agroforestry is that the trees, they bring in huge inputs of organic matter and also oxygen. And furthermore, they remove carbon dioxide from the environment. And this is very good also for the removal of greenhouse gases, which plays a positive role towards global warming. The third advantage of having trees is that they reduce the loss of nutrients from the soil by leaching. And leaching is a process whereby soil is lost from the soil profile because water from rain, etc., when they pass through the soil, they also wash out the nutrients. But with the trees, they have roots that are reaching out to various levels of the soil depth and are able to pick up the nutrients that are going down with the water and then bring them up again to the trees and to the soil surface. The third advantage of having trees is that they reduce the chances of soil loss by erosion. Soil erosion is the loss of soil from the soil surface, and they get washed out during rains. And when you have trees, they help to hold the soil in place and avoid their loss by erosion. The fourth advantage of including trees is that they can improve the fertility of the soil. And this is possible if we select tree species that can help with improving soil fertility, and especially legumes that are able to fix huge quantities of nitrogen, meaning that they can convert nitrogen in the air and convert them into a type of nitrogen that will be available to the plants. My fifth topic is disadvantages of agroforestry, or disadvantages of having trees with crops. The first disadvantage is that of competition. When you have trees, they will take up space which cannot be occupied by crops, so you will have less area for cropping. The second disadvantage is that trees can become weeds, and this is especially true if you are using trees that have a lot of seedlings. They will produce a lot of seedlings and they can become weeds. The third disadvantage of having trees is that they can harbor pests and diseases that attack crops. If this happens, it will be difficult to control these pests and diseases because they can hide in the trees. A fourth disadvantage is that trees can also suffer from pests and diseases themselves. And if they suffer from pests and diseases, they will not grow properly and will not be able to provide the products or services that we are expecting from them. My sixth topic is improving indigenous agroforestry. Some suggestions. Here I give some suggestions on how to improve the indigenous agroforestry system. Number one is that we should look at crops and trees that can bring a good income. So this is one of the suggested ideas, is that for farmers to consider the various trees available and the various crops available and pick those that can bring a good income for them. The second suggestion is to include trees that can fix a lot of nitrogen and improve fertility of the soil. A second suggestion for improving indigenous agroforestry is for farmers to include trees that can fix large amounts of nitrogen. So this requires farmers to consider all the trees that are available and discuss with the officers that have expertise in this area and consider growing trees that can fix large amounts of nitrogen. These are especially legumes, which can convert nitrogen from the air to nitrogen that can be available for plants. The attached list will include some details, but examples are erythrina, daydac, these kind of trees that fix large amounts of nitrogen should be considered. A third suggestion for improving indigenous agroforestry is pruning. Pruning for trees, pruning the branches to keep them short, for example breadfruit, so that they continue to allow some light to come through, and also pruning the roots of trees that are growing near crops so that they don't interfere with the crops. So pruning is another important suggestion. A fourth suggestion is with regard to spacing between the trees. In the indigenous system, spacing is not seriously considered. But nowadays, when there are tractors available for hire to do the cultivation of soil, we might want to include using tractors to cultivate our soil. And if we are thinking of this, we have to consider the spacing between the trees so that tractors will be able to come in and out. Lastly, section 7 is my conclusion. Just want to point out 3 things. Firstly, agroforestry has been serving us in the Pacific Islands for quite a long time. Secondly, all we need is to improve it and not to try and bring in new ideas that are totally new. And thirdly, I want to point out that there are a lot of ideas out there that we can use to improve our indigenous agroforestry. And more of these ideas are included in the narrative that is attached to this presentation. Thank you very much.